a milestone for the main track, and we're answering your questions coming up. Hey everyone, welcome back to the main track. My name is Mike and it's awesome to have you along with us here today. I got some really fun news from YouTube just a few days ago that we had hit 5,000 subscribers here on the channel. I'm not normally a big numbers person, but that one there is a big compliment, knowing you guys are all tuning in and joining us here for these model railroading episodes as we have fun and have these updates here on my HO scale Sedalia Subdivision layout. So I certainly appreciate each and every one of you guys and some of the gals out there tuning into our videos in the recent months, leaving likes and comments and even some questions. And along those lines, I'd like to do something a little different for this episode, and that's answer some of the questions you guys have left. So starting off, we have this comment from Alconk. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that name right. Hopefully I am, but we'll go ahead with our question here. He says, so realistic, what brand or code of track and turnouts are you using? Well, here on my layout, I'm now using Peco Code 83 track. Now, Peco is a European company. They have track made for European modeling and a North American style, and of course, that's the one I use here on my layout. Now, up until recently, I had been using Atlas Code 83 track. Now, for those of you that are wondering what code is, that refers to the size and weight of the rail. Heavier main lines have bigger rail for heavier trains, and it goes down from there depending upon how busy your line is or what kind of a train it's handling. Now, a lot of beginners start out with code 100. Code 83, though, is a lot closer to what you'll find in real life. Now, if I had things to do over again, I'd likely use code 70 track, which is even lighter than the code 83. But I started with code 83. We're going to keep doing that and maybe switch down the line to that lighter rail if I can. Now, that Atlas track had served me pretty well all those years. It's kind of a funny story about how I ran into Peco. I had stopped by a hobby store to get some flex track and they were out of Atlas, so all they had was Peco. Bought the Peco and ended up liking it better when I got it home and put it on the layout. I like the detail on it, and something else that's kind of random that's a nice benefit. It has a slightly different rail profile that helps with ballasting. Now, model railroading is full of things that we love and chores that we don't so much love. One of those things that I hate is cleaning up the track after ballasting. It seems no matter how careful you are, you always end up getting stuck with some of those tiny rocks stuck inside the rails. But what I found is something about Peco track is less attractive to that ballast clinging in there. So less of it gets stuck, and what does get caught seems to be easier to get out of there. So that's just been my experience. Another thing I like about Peco over Atlas are the spring-loaded turnouts. I personally like the experience of hand-throwing my switches. I'm not a real big fan of the bulky hand-throw machines out there. Now with Peco track, when you manually throw the switch points, it stays in place, just like this. So I'm not using my big bulky fingers. I use the same skewer stick I use for uncoupling cars, and it works out great for me. Now, as for those turnouts, I use a minimum of number 8s here on the layout, and my curves are a minimum of 30 degrees. Now, Peco track is a little more delicate, and there is a learning curve, no pun intended, when it comes to laying the track around bends and such. Of course, Atlas is still great, but I really like how the Peco looks, and I'm glad I switched to that. My older half of the layout with the yard here has the Atlas track, but from this point forward, it's Peco. You can tell the difference when you look really close, but I've been able to weather the ballast in a way that your eye's not going to catch that really. Now, along the lines of track, we have Web City Railfan asking if I can do a video on how I make my railroad crossings. Now, I plan to have a video coming up sometime soon where I focus on those grade crossings, but I'll touch on that real quick right now since we're on the topic. Now, some people build their own grade crossing surfaces, and if you don't want to go that route, there's some really nice crossing products out there. For instance, Blair Line makes some great ones made out of wood. Now, what I use here on the layout are Woodland Scenics crossing planks. Now, they're made out of plastic, but molded and painted to look like wood. Once these are in, I weather them up pretty nicely along with the track, and it all blends together. Now, these Woodland Scenics planks do come in a certain length and width, and they're a little narrower than what I needed, so I have had to cut and glue some parts to get the specs I needed. Now, I do believe Woodland Scenics also makes a metal crossing plank for other modern crossings. I know Walthers also has some for concrete roadway surfaces, so there's lots of products out there that you can choose from depending upon what your roadways look like. Now, Revenge of the Nerds leaves a nice comment about the crossings and the roads as well. He also asks, are you going to be getting any of the Katie Athern GP38s coming out this winter? The answer to that one is a big yes. That's certainly on my wish list. Athern had announced these Katie GP38-2s several months ago. They have been a little bit delayed, but I know a lot of Katie modelers are waiting patiently for those, and I do plan to snag those up. Atlas is also releasing some nice Katie GP40s. Not sure when those are supposed to be out. They're still listing it on the website as to be determined. So I'm going to have some nice locomotives for my roster in the coming months. I'm pretty excited about that. And next up we have Mesquite Belt, who has a question about one of my bridges. He says, your clearance sign on the bridge says 12.6, but the picture says 13.9. So did the state dig the road down for clearance from earlier years? Well, for this one, I'll admit it's a you caught me. What he's referring to here is a few episodes back, I showed you my Highway 50 overpass. In the old prototype pics I flashed up, you could see a clearance sign of 13 feet, but my bridge shows 12 feet. So what happened here is I put that 12-foot sign in place as a stand-in. That's all I had at the moment. It's a pretty nice sign from a kit from Blair Line. Now I plan to go back in there and put in a proper, or at least closer to proper, 13-foot sign later on, but of course, as we all know, time flies by and you get busy with other projects. But as you can see here, I did find a sign closer to what would be in that 13-foot range and installed it. So a shout out to Mesquite Belt for reminding me to get that project done. And so we'll leave those questions and answers right there for the time being. I've got lots and lots of questions still on the list I plan to get to. So I'll be watching the comment sections very closely for any of those questions. Just send my way and see what I can do about providing some of those answers on our future episodes. Again, my name is Mike. It's been great seeing you here on the main track today. Hope you have an awesome week. Until next time, all aboard and all the best. We'll see you there.